Testing. One, two, three. Testing. One, two, three. Testing. Yes, doing two shows today. There is a ton going on. And um, there's a lot I'm going to discuss because I've read a lot of things that you have to know about. So, first, oh, Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is kingdom, power, glory, yours now and forever. Your Son, our Savior, our King, Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I am not an attorney, but I do know something about constitutional law. There is no constitutional law for abortion. So when these people tell you their rights are being violated, 50% of those fetuses that have been aborted are women, if not more. Actually, tends to be more women than boys. Um, and then you're ready for this other statistics. Since 1973, I think there have been as many abortions, and we're not talking about the babies that these aborted fetuses can have, in just the black community alone, than there are blacks living alive in the United States. Literally, it's been a genocide. The blacks have not gained population in this United States. They've remained, you can look it up, at the same percentage. Other nationalities have come in, but because of abortions, and then remember, you're killing those babies and all the babies that those babies can have. And a lot of those babies were women. Now, unbeknownst to everybody else is saying, it's not overturning Roe. It's not illegal. For example, the state law in New York State, basically, they can kill a fetus right up to delivery. Huh. Other states, no, they have 15 weeks, 8 weeks, different times. Okay, so don't believe this jargon. Okay, if anything, you ready for this? Women's rights by the Supreme Court have been upheld, and the Constitution's been upheld, which means it goes back to the states and the legislatures of those states and the representatives of those states. We're not even discussing morality here. We're discussing legal power. You're putting it back into the states and taking away from the federal government. That is a bonus beyond bonus. Okay? And remember, the Bill of Rights is a limit to the power of the government for the God created properties that we all have. I personally think that a person should have the right to be born. These people who are protesting and they're going to, this is nothing going on here. I'm warning everybody, okay? It's going to be very bad tonight. So change your plans. Hunker down, especially if you're in cities like I am. Okay, gonna be bad. Do not count on the police. You will not have them. So in some places, it might behoove you to take your cars and park them in your backyard. Okay, just saying. Something that I am considering doing. All right. I'm going to read from Joshua, and this is, I guess this would be 2:22. They departed and went to the mountain and stayed there for 3 days until the pursuers returned. The pursuers sought them all along the way, but did not find them. So the two men returned, descended from the mountain, and crossed over. And they came to Joshua, the son of Nun, and told him all that had befallen them. And they said to Joshua, truly, the Lord has delivered all the land into our hands. For indeed, all inhabitants of the country are faint hearted because of us. Dr. Charles Stanley writes, God always follows through on his promises, but it encourages us greatly when, in his grace, he gives us a fortunate of that, a fortune, a taste of that fulfillment promise. You guys got tastes of things that I don't know about you, but I've been praying for, and others have been praying for. Now, some statistics you know people don't understand. We're talking worldwide, okay? So, as a statistic, and I'm just talking about abortions now. How many Einsteins did we kill? How many Hawkins did we kill? How many Da Vinci's did we kill? How many Elon Musk's, Steve Jobs? You know, a lot of people don't realize this, but Steve Jobs was a foster child. He was adopted. Wozniaks, okay? You know, I know Armstrongs, Charlie Dukes. How many? You ready for this? Einstein's, at least 11. Hawkins, at least 15. Charlie Dukes, well over 10,000. Armstrong's, 100. You know, this is talent that is gone. Not only is the talent gone, but then do the addition of what about their offspring? What about the offspring of those people and the talents that would have been passed down? I think about my sons. My father was a lieutenant in the United States Navy. He was a fighter pilot in the Korean War, and he was a test pilot later. My son, Bobby, is flying with his wings. Matter of fact, when he was winged, they read the whole history of the wings and my father's history, and to which that they even mentioned the fact that my father's name is on the moon because he was instrumental in building the AG5 computers. In fact, without my father's invention, you wouldn't even have the computers you have now. My uncle Don, huge guy. There's a picture of my father and my uncle, and it looks almost like my son and James. Again, extremely gifted athletically. Ohio State has got a picture of him. I mean, incredible, incredible shooter and everything. Incredible. So those genes they pass down. Now, I inherited some of both. I was an athlete and I could shoot and I could fly. I was a I was an above I was a pretty good pilot. Okay, not nearly as good as my father, not nearly as good as my son Bobby. Okay, I was a good shooter, but again, not nearly as good as my son James. Okay, my son James can shoot a tick off a dog at 1,000 yards. I'm not kidding. I mean, and he's done those kind of shots on the record. So, but the kid's been studying in the history. He knew more about guns at 13. The history, I mean, incredible stuff. The actual um, technology of it, and the the ballistics and the history of it is amazing. He read everything. He was incredibly. He just wanted to have that. He would go to sleep with these History Channel tapes I would have on, guns and everything else. He'd fall asleep in his room listening to that. And I would keep every year on his birthday, I keep getting him, different encyclopedias on guns and incredible, I mean, incredible things. And he knew, I mean, we're talking all kinds of technologies of rifles and things that went wrong, and why they were tried and they failed, and incredible. Okay, just the same way my other son was studying physics and flight and everything else. James had no passion for that. It's fine. Okay, I treated those guys the same but different, which means I fed them what they wanted to be. Like James is extreme, just like me, extremely mechanically inclined. Okay, the kid can fix anything. Okay, Bobby is very gifted electronically. He do good things mechanically only because he works at it. Okay, but doesn't have that instinct. Okay, where he could just fix anything. You know, James was always into cars and tinkering and everything else. And Bobby, not so much because he didn't care. He wanted to be up in the sky. But then he was line maintenance officer on his last deployment. So why? He knows everything from the nose to the tail and every rivet and every system in between. And not only knows it, he understands it. So, yeah. And both of the boys inherited my wife's communication capabilities and um, tremendous ability to communicate and formulate an argument and everything else. Where not me. No, I'm logical oriented and I can solve problems. But one on one, if you ask me a question, I can explain it. I can teach it if I know it. Okay. Oh, so let's see what we have. Very very sad scene was that. Um, what people don't seem to understand is that it does not make, unfortunately, and the thing is, you can't justify morality. Okay, so um, like, do I believe in um forcing a woman to carry her incestuous child or her rape thing or something like that, that's a really touchy thing. And I think that there should be exceptions definitely made for that. What I would seriously um, push for is, again, a technology to where that those babies can be saved outside the womb. Um, and no, that's a very strong philosophical question, but again, to mentally, I think it should be definitely up to the woman on that type of thing because that's a tough one. You know, I mean, and the thing is, I've known girls in my life that were literally they were raped by their fathers and they were made pregnant by their fathers. So that's wow. I mean, that's like whoa. And they even to this day they're yeah. So that's now on the other thing on the Supreme Court and the Second Amendment. That's an extremely good thing because again, just like Judge Thomas said, you can't quantify and say that you qualify for it to have Sixth Amendment rights or Fifth Amendment rights. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, I've always said, and they turned me down because they said that I didn't have a need. At the time when I was asking for it, I did. I was going into extreme because I had a client in the Bronx, um, and it was like playing Russian roulette. And many, many a time, I was literally running as fast as I could to my car, being chased. Uh, Not a fun thing. And again, there was no police, and they know. Just like, for example, on my range that I go shooting at, they know that we're coming there. And in New York State, there was a ruling where we couldn't even carry our guns concealed going to the range. And these bad people were waiting for us and they were sticking us up at gunpoint and taking our guns because we couldn't protect the guns from thievery. They changed the law. Well, it's not even a law. It was a ruling done by police. It's totally unconstitutional. Wasn't an elected thing. They just decided to make their own legislation. And interesting enough, and the regulations that they put out, again, if you're a police officer or retired, doesn't you no restrictions. Which I always said that that was unconstitutional because what makes them a better citizen than I am when that issue is. Now, if you want to talk about a gun safety thing, fine. Then what I always said for a license, and I have all the paperwork as well because I was a range officer, is sure, take these people, make sure they can see, make sure they can, just like a driver's license, make sure they can shoot, take them to an IPSC range. You're gonna see 80 to 90% of the cops and other federal agents fail. Okay, because why? Because where the last time I was tested, I scored perfect with both hands. Okay, why? Because I've been doing this for 47 years. So there's like a ton of muscle memory. I mean, I remember my last test. I didn't even think about it. I was just and the guy was like, I was shooting better than the instructors, and it was like they never saw a fat guy move so fast and do things. Why? Because I'm shooting and I'm moving laterally. And he flags me because I safety the gun after each um you know station because on an IPSC range, okay, If you don't sit, you get a violation, which means before you leave the last station circle, you have to clear the gun, you have to empty your magazine, and make the gun safe. A safe condition. Safe condition is the bolt, the slide, or the revolver, whatever it is open to which that you can see or stick your finger in a chamber. Okay, so not only is the magazine pulled out, but the gun is back and open. Then it gets holstered. Okay, they didn't want this on this test. They wanted you to cock and lock it or decock. It depends on the gun. One guy had a 45-6. I was shooting with my Thule too, which is basically a 1911 modified with a laser sight and everything else, tritium and the whole bit. And so they want you to keep it loaded and put a fresh magazine in it and cock and lock and put it into your holster, literally a live gun, which I am not used to. My muscle memory is to make the gun safe. Now if I'm in a gunfight, what I have done, what I you think that if I go from one box to another and bad guys are shooting me, that after I finish going from one box I would safety the gun? It's ridiculous. So in the end, he gave me, because I made that raised that argument. I'm like, dude, I've been shooting center for all these other things for so long. My muscle memory is set to safety the weapon. Okay. Uh, Anyway, so that, by the way, helps women. Now, if I had girls, I would have raised them the same way as I raised my sons. My sons are extremely formidable. Okay. My son Bobby won the United States NCAA karate championship. He was on a Navy karate team. Number one in the whole nation. He won. Okay. So he's like really fast and like, okay. My other guy, forget about it. He could kill you with his finger. He doesn't even need a gun. Uh, so, and I would have done the same. As a matter of fact, Bobby, his um, company mate is a female, and she was even better than he was on some things. I mean, her kicking was insane. I used to go to you know, I mean, anyway, point is, um, that is very important. So, what this does, not every woman is proficient in that, or can they? Specifically, older women, specifically older people, but they can still get trained and they can still shoot. If you can drive a car, you can be taught to be proficient shooting. In some ways, it's easier. Okay. And what does that do? It doesn't mean that you have to. No. But what it does is, in these states now, the bad guys are looking and they're like, gee, I don't know if that person has a gun, because there's going to be instances where the person fights back of the carjacking, fights back of the thing, fights back to the R, okay? And thus that's going to be running through their head. These bad guys look for gun-free zones. A gun-free zone is a blessing to them because they know that nobody has guns except them. That's what people don't seem to understand. If you're hell bent on killing and doing bad things, these laws are not going to stop you from doing it. There are more illegal guns on the market than there are legal guns on the market. Okay. There are more illegal drugs on the market than there are legal drugs on the market. Same reason. Okay. The decriminalization does not work. I never endorsed that. What I said was keep it criminal, but take the profit. Have two windows, and I mean it, two windows: drug treatment or sign a waiver and get pure stuff. Have a nice day. By the way, it could kill you, but at least it'll keep them away from the fentanyl, the illegal stuff, and everything else. And then they won't have to rob anybody. They won't have to do. You could even set up centers where they can do whatever. But the point is that taking the money out is the key. So all these laws that these people make now, what did they do? What did I post on my video? Those 14, those guys are traitors. Every single one should be voted out of office because these gun laws would have had absolutely zero effect, zero effect in the Udall, Texas shooting. They would have had zero effect in the Buffalo shooting. Why? Those weapons were already illegal in Buffalo. The door was opened in the school. The cops were standing there doing waiting while children were being killed, not upholding their oath. What if this kid couldn't get his hand on an AR and decided he was going to rip off his neighbor's propane truck? Three houses down, propane truck. So he drives instead with a liquid propane truck, drives that into school, and it goes off. You ever see one of these trucks go off? Oh my God. Okay. There would have been, however, the population of that school is, hundreds of people would have been killed. Chat is off, Bob. You have to be a subscriber. Chat's working. Exactly. And why? Because every single time governments have disarmed citizens, millions of them have been killed for the sake of safety. Notice, if they want to disarm people, okay, my ruling, you ready for this? If they vote to take away the Second Amendment, that's for everybody. Cops, nope, nope. FBI, nope. Nope. Nobody gets them. Yeah, then see how fast they don't do it. Okay, because having them have the guns and you don't, which is what Pelosi wants, does she have guns all around her? Yep. Do any of these anti-guns do? I know for a fact that my son guards stars and people who go to anti-gun rallies and want him and his men to be loaded for bear. But the hypocrisy is so thick where they preach, oh, guns are terrible, terrible. How many children? How many children you got to lose to fentanyl? 120,000 have died this year. Okay, not all of them are, you know, 7, 11, 12 years old. Fine. But they're 14, they're 11, an 18-year-old, a college student, three cadets from the military academy, all having promised lives in front of them, and they are all dead. A lot more. If you add the numbers up, over 220,000 since this idiot took office. They're just as dead. Their tragedies are reflected in everybody. I guarantee that if you go to your office and you talk to your coworkers, there that you will know somebody who they lost somebody to drug overdose from fentanyl, whatever. My best friend lost his son. He was going to go to rehab. He wanted to get that last hurrah before he goes in. Last hurrah was laced with fentanyl. Kid's dead. Okay. The criminals will never give up their guns. The criminals will never give up their bombs. The criminals will never give up their weapons. They are criminals. They're never going to do it. And in other countries, we've seen this happen. Machine guns killed all those people in England, Charlie, and the police who didn't even have guns. They would just they would just fish in a barrel. They were just shot left and right. A woman was just shot left and right. Other people have been stabbed left and right. The cops don't even have knives in England. So these yeti, they're running around just macheting them and whatever. Doesn't people have to understand that there is evil? This is not a saved world. The only way you can defeat evil is that you meet it with a good person with a gun. Period. That's what you have to do. Not everybody has the talent or the ability to do that. But the people that do and want to get trained and do it should be offered the opportunity to do so. I don't agree that anybody who can buy a gun should be out toting a gun concealed because they went to a gun store, whatever. No. Just like I don't believe that anybody who can buy a car should be out driving on the road because you came here and New York State is taking your picture and just handing out license. They didn't do that to me. When I was 16 years old, I had to go through my whole driver's education course in school. I had to take my driver's ed, I had to take tests, I had to take my driver's license test, and then I got my license, but it was only good during the daytime. It wouldn't be good at nighttime till I turned 17. Do they do that to these people that they're flying here in Westchester and other places? Absolutely not. They're just giving them licenses. People just sign a paper and show up. How is that? And so there's horrific accidents that are happening in New York State. My wife deals with them all the time. And it's so horrible because these people do not have any insurance. They don't have it. So my wife had an incident where a guy he became a um it's not a paralyzed from the waist down. Okay, from a guy an illegal smashing into him drunk. Okay, and it was like his second or third time he was drunk. No insurance, illegal, whatever. This guy is now disabled, can't have any kids, uh, and there's nothing. Okay, I mean, and I ask you this: even if the other person had insurance, what would the price would you pay to give up your legs, to give up the ability to have children? Give up what would you do? How much? How much money would be enough for that? Would it be 12 million? Would it be 100 million? Would it be no price? There is no price. I can tell you right now. Getting hugged from my sons throughout my life, there's been certain times you couldn't give me $1 trillion to replace that. There is no money in the world that would equate that feeling. There was no money in the world to equate the feeling of holding your sons, you know, and then handing them to your wife. I mean, You can't put a price tag on something like that. And yet this is happening every single day. Home invasions are happening every single day in New York. And now that they're saying to me, because I was turned down twice to get a carrot that you don't have a need. What was I going to do? How was I going to show them that I made deposits of $5,000 in cash a week? I wasn't, but I was carrying over $100,000 worth of boards in my trunk in my car. Luckily, my car looked beat up because it was a 20-year-old car. But that's not the point. The point is that you know, and sometimes I'd have to bring cash in to go to auctions to get equipment and things like this. It was extremely dangerous. And it didn't have to be. I was a pistol license owner at the time. I would have loved to be able to, and I wouldn't have brandished anything. I wouldn't have done that. But what I would have done is, you know, been able to defend myself if something like that happened. And it's pretty funny because people don't realize, because there are times when, I would go to the range and I would carry and I'd be carrying it. I remember one time I took my neighbor next door, who was a dentist, and he has a full carry license and he couldn't hit the paper at 20 feet. It was ridiculous. He was extremely unsafe and handling his gun very unsafely. To which the as ranger, I gave him a gun safety course, which he never had. Yet he had a full carry license. And by the time we finished, he was at least putting 3 rounds on the paper. But still. Anyway, I come home, it was Halloween, and we lived in a bad neighborhood at the time. And these kids, these older kids, they weren't kids, they were teenagers, older teenager hoodlums, were harassing me and my friend. Now, normally, um, I was in much better shape then. This was like 35 years ago. Anyway, I would have beaten the living tar out of them normally. I would never throw the first punch, but I would have definitely gotten in their face. Did not do that. Why? Because I'm armed. And thus I had to walk away and de-escalate it, and they kept it coming and coming and coming. They didn't care. They didn't care. Um, I never started a fight ever in my life, but I used to finish them quite often. And that was the way it was. Growing up with the name Ball, that's and it wasn't always that way. I was picked on throughout school. It was finally I got into 7th grade, and my father had, given me karate courses since I was like, I don't know, 7 years old. And finally, one day, this kid he wanted my lunch and everything else. I said, no, not going to do it. And I ended up throwing him. His name was Artie Fust. I ended up throwing him down the stairwell. I didn't mean to throw him down the stairwell. That's the truth. But he grabbed my shoulder, and I just reacted by instinct from the sensei training you. Luckily, Mr. Steinman, my social studies and homeroom teacher, saw the entire thing and was talking about it and everything else, because this Artie Fuss guy broke his arm. And ever since then, I've no, no matter how many there were, I didn't back down, and I'm glad. I really really am. They did the same thing to my son. Believe it or not, James, not Bobby, James. James would be sitting in his middle school eating lunch, and this kid would grab a chair and hit him over the head. And the principal called me down because my son then picked him up and threw him across the room. And of course the principal shows me that, I'm like, wait a second. James would not do this unprovoked. No. Rewind the tape. And I'm watching this. My son's talking to his friend, eating his thing, and gets hit over the head with a chair. I just said, "You're not gonna do anything to my boy. No, not gonna happen. And if you want to have problems, deal with my wife on this, and she'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court if she has to." But that kid, my son, could have been very badly hurt by that. So anyway, so that's a good thing. Now, okay, bad things. 4 months ago, the Biden administration and others, okay, the Black Water Group, some other kinds of people, have heavily invested in this new electric truck system and this new electric thing for fallout for financial hedging. They are also shareholders in Union Pacific, and they demanded Pilot and other big stations like Love, Pilot, and everything else to reduce a third of their shipments of diesel and DEF. Now, Pilot is responsible for almost 50% of the fuel and DEF on the East Coast of the United States. So is Love. Okay. As we know, this country runs on diesel. The Biden administration never seems to be upset or worried about the elections that are coming. And the reason why they don't, because I think that they know something that we don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know what it is. Real time now, kind of like growing up, there was an Albert Ball and a Johnny Ball. The balls here, they might be in my roll. We go back to 1631. Okay, a Sir William Ball, captain, came over, and then he captained a boat, and him and his brother settled here. Okay, and they later had kids and they moved. If you look at the phone book, there's tons of us. So they, yeah, that's what it goes back to. So I've had a lot of blood. Basically, every generation has been affiliated with the government or military in some way, shape, or form. So we were there in the beginning of the formation of this country. Some of us built and died for the Civil War, and yeah, and Bull Canning. That's my family. Alan Ball. He's also my family cousin. It's like I think he's a second cousin removed, something like that. My wife is very good at that. I'm not. Okay, so um, so now tonight and tomorrow, tomorrow when you go to the store, buy as much food and water as you can. If you can't, um, get a 5 gallon jerry can and keep it um, not in your car, but keep it filled with fuel. Harbor Freight has a better one, a really good one. They're made in the USA. They're expensive. They're like $89, but they're worth it. Then the other thing is to do is to get 5 gallons of diesel and keep that for barter. Now, then what you do is you take a container, they make them, and you can carry a gallon in a container. They make special containers for this where you can, have a gallon container to which that, you know, and other things that they sell it at the auto parts store. They're emergency gas. So they're safe to keep into your in your trunk. They're DOT approved. But if you run out of fuel, it's enough to put it into the thing to get you to someplace. Why am I saying this? There's going to be gas shortages. So, like I said last time, you got to start communicating with your relatives. You got to start communicating with your friends, and you have to start saving. That means go to the market together, do things together, get used to this, so that each week it's a turn of somebody else to do whatever, and always keep a 6 month supply prior, and keep rotating it so that you're ready. The other thing is in your trunk, go to Five and Dime and get, I showed it once, a portable barbecue pack. They're $10. They're made of aluminum and they have coal and everything else. And keep it in your trunk, in your bag. Plan on a place in the mountains, away from people. Uh, could be a park. It could be anything. Okay. Remember, at worst, you can live out of your car. Get a tent. They sell them cheap at different places. Okay. Um, Sleeping bags, things like this, and ways to make and create water. Things are deteriorating all over the world. The world is already in a major recession, headed for a depression. Here, we just started doing a recession. And by the end of the summit, I mean, really, by the beginning of next year, it could be a very deep recession. The difference between a recession and a depression is that a recession is where you see things are very expensive. A depression is where things are very expensive, but you lost your job. So you have no way of supporting yourself, paying the rent, everything else. This is planned, people. Okay. This is how a lot of things happen in the past. It's repeating itself. Yeah, it'll never happen. You can't. I'm talking about Gary. Gary, you can't replace diesel, which is 50% efficient, with an electric truck. Okay. What they should have done was an intermediate, and also diesels are actually very clean. Really, they are. So what they could have done, which is what they should have done, they should have gone to a four-cylinder diesel and made it a hybrid electric diesel, which means on inclines and other things that they would be using both the electric motor and the diesel motor, but the diesel motor would be running all the time, and that's two cylinders less than a standard truck diesel engine, but also it would be way more efficient because they could set up to run at a very efficient RPM, like 1800 RPM, and put out a specific, uh, so they can make it more efficient. But that's not what they want. Okay, they didn't want that. They could have made it run on propane. Any diesel engine, any diesel engine that's out there can run on propane. Okay, it can also run on compressed natural gas, regular compressed natural gas, a very, like an almost nothing modification, and that engine can be running on compressed natural gas or propane. Will it put out the same power as diesel? No. Any diesel engine can be modified to run on biodiesel. Okay. They can take pure corn oil, which is $7 a gallon. Yes, diesel's not 7 gallons a gallon, but I'll be able to take regular corn oil, virgin corn oil, and I can put it right into my van and run it. Okay, it actually burns cleaner than regular fuel. It actually burns way cleaner than anything. Okay, but if I took and I collected grease from like two Chinese restaurants I know of, I could buy a biodiesel creator and make biodiesel from that grease. Okay, you need methanol. You need to have a whole rigmarole. It can be done. Okay, I know people who've done it. I didn't want to do it. Okay, but with fuel prices getting to so now it's renewable, it's non-polluting, and I mean non-polluting. It's totally non-polluting when you do that. Even the nitrous oxide levels are way, way less. So if they were interested in pollution, why wouldn't they do a full out biodiesel thing? I mean, there's plenty. You got McDonald's. I mean, do you have any idea how much fried foods there are in this country? Just saying. Okay. I can do this. Okay. Now you can't do it with a modern diesel. You can't because of all the pollution devices that are on the car since after 2010. They can't run the biodiesel and stuff like this. They can't do it. Charcoal is Jim Foreman still writes about charcoal. Yeah, that's just wood heated up and burnt without oxygen. The pilgrims have been doing it. Another statement that you might give to these idiots is that what melted the last ice age? Was it Ford or Toyota? If it wasn't Ford or Toyota, which it wasn't, okay, 14,000 years ago, there was no Ford or Toyota, okay? So what did it? The Earth changes its cyclical orbit. There's near Earth objects, there's volcanism, there's all kinds of things that do say that we need? Yes, we need to get off oil. We need to get off all these things. Why? They're too expensive. That's the big thing. They're too expensive and they're not efficient. 50% efficient is not efficient, people. But because of Carnot, you can never get more than 50% on an internal combustion engine. Can't do it. Right? You understand with physics. Electric is not efficient. Believe it or not, the electric systems are 37% efficient. You're less efficient. And you don't have a vampire drain on your so-called my truck. My truck, gosh, after my stroke, my truck almost sat for 6 months before my wife started up and drove it around the block just to drive it. Did it all the diesel that was in the tank evaporate? No. Did she have to crank it a little bit to get it started? Yeah. But it started like on the second try. Now with that electric car, no. No, that electric car wouldn't do that. No. If you didn't have that electric car totally hooked up to electricity, it would have just been dead. All that energy gone to the blue yonder, whatever. No. We need, in order to make electric work, you have to have a change. You have to have room temperature superconductivity. Am I for electric for that? Oh yeah. Why? Because then it only costs me $1 to charge up my car and only take 5 minutes. I could retrofit my truck and I'll be able to go 500 miles on like $1. Right? Because the thing will be 100% efficient. It'll have storage as 100% efficient. The electric motor will work 100% efficient. The transfer of energy would be 100% efficient. Game changer. Okay. That's what we were working on under Trump, that he publicized the work that MIT and Stanford was doing on superconductivity. No, should he have? Absolutely. Absolutely, because that is the future. It's 2022. That's the future. Then you would have you ready for this? The lightning capital of the world will become the biggest power generation state in the world. They could take all those lightning strikes and literally harness them into supercapacitors. Just think how much power that is. It's unbelievable how much power that is. And that's just one area of things that would have been changed. Do they really want that? No, they don't want that. They don't want you to have energy. They don't want you to have cheap energy. Don't believe this crap. They want the energy to be really expensive so that the freedom is less. The more expensive, the higher the inflation because energy is the real money. Whether it becomes expensive food, whether it becomes expensive fuel, it decreases your freedom. It makes you dependent upon them. Jim Fullman writes, "Is the government controlling the weather?" The government wishes it can control the weather. I think that they were doing some experiments with HARP and other things, and I think that they have abilities to control micro areas of the weather with a lot of capabilities, not worldwide. No. What unfortunately you're seeing is the meandering effect of a weakening magnetic field, a magnetic field that's going literally parabolic like this. I mean, I'm not kidding, it's bad. And it's going to bring on basically another ice age. Okay. Two things. This is the last solar cycle before the sun has a grand minimum, and we're also due for it. Okay, so it's all cyclical. You'll notice that there's a 12,500 year cycle for major events, and they're extinction events. The last one happened basically 13,000 years ago, which melted the last ice age. Then you went through a solar activity cycle to which that guess what? It was pretty warm, pretty warm here on the planet to melt all that ice. You're talking about the glaciers stopped at Virginia, so I had right above my head here. There was 6 to 7 miles of ice. This Long Island was formed by that melting of that glacier. Yeah, so they didn't call Greenland for nothing, you know. Um, the Earth also flips every 750,000 years. It does a 90-degree rotation thing, to which that the new equator will be over the South Pole through Greenland. That kind of thing, which means we'll here in North America, we'll be in the southern hemisphere. Yeah. This Long Island, the shore won't exist because when it does this, the water is going to move from the depths of the ocean onto the land. So if you're not above really 16, 1700 feet, basically my house in Vermont, I'll be able to look out on the Atlantic Ocean. On the mountain where I have my house, I'll be able to look at the valley and I'll see ocean. Now it'll eventually retreat off the land, but it's going to take a long time for that to happen. Is that is it gonna? Yeah, well, it'll happen in anywhere between 25, 50 years. Nobody really knows. Could be 150 years. Now I don't know. I do know that a CME from the sun is going to hit us. Another Carrington event is going to happen. Okay. Now, biologic wise, no, it's not going to. I mean, you get more when you get through an MRI, but what it will do is it'll wipe out our technology. This stuff. This stuff will no longer work. Okay. Because the infrastructure, it'll be burnt up. It won't work. To the Aztec, exactly, Jim Foreman. Exactly. That's why their calendar was 12,500 years. These were very intelligent people. I mean, look at the pyramids and stuff that they made down there. I mean, you can't even fit a piece of paper. The stones are like carved precisely. We don't have the technology to do it now. How did they do it then? Makes you think, right? It's going to be higher than that, Gary. It's going to be 113 degrees. But you will note that in the 1830s through 1868, it was way hotter in the Southwest on the regular. Okay. Yeah. So it's a desert. The only reason why it hasn't been a desert is because of the tapping during a time of a lot of rain and everything else of Lake Mead, Lake Powell, and those other places. But you're seeing this drought, which is really a cyclical thing. It's really a normal thing. That lake is going to be a dead lake soon, which means you got to wonder what's going to happen to the 40 million people south of the Hoover Dam when that's going to stop. They're going to shut that off. So no longer will water be running in the Colorado River down south of that. What does that mean? See, what is life back? I'm talking 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even. They should have been taking. There was a technology called a, a molten salt reactor technology, and it was running at Oak Ridge for 14 years. And part of that technology, because it runs so hot, is that it has a tremendous amount of free heat. It's safe because it's not under pressure. It's a molten salt. It's like taking your table salt and liquefying it. Okay, so it doesn't run under pressure, but it has a lot of heat. Okay, 795-degree heat. Okay, but what can you do with that heat? You can make diesel. Okay, methyl ethyl. Dimethyl ethyl. You can make fuel from the air. You could also desalinate the ocean and make tons of fresh water. And they should have been doing that in California. They should have been setting up 200 megawatt plants all along the coast. And then with those reactors, because they run on thorium and also they can run on nuclear waste, they can run basically. You could dig rock, regular rock, but you don't have to because any given rare earth mine, 50% of the tilings that come out for it are monazite, and 50% of monazite is thorium. So you would have fuel for the next 5,000 years for those reactors. Okay. And it's safe. They're 98% efficient because they're breeder reactors. And they can make the key chain for thorium. You'd also have fantastic things like plutonium 238, bismuth, things like that. You'd also have these other compounds that could be used to fight cancer, other types of things, unlike the other lancets from the regular uranium 235, which are very bad. Okay. The uranium 232, which is produced from the thorium, is not good for bombs. It has a tremendous gamma capability, so you can't make bombs with it. The only thing it's good for is making power. That's it. Making power and using it for medical treatment. But Nixon got a call from GE, threw it off the table. That's not what they wanted. They don't wanted e- expensive things. They don't want the best thing that's for you. That's the problem. That's the problem with the democracy in this country. It became financially corrupt. What should have happened was that um, there should have been something in the Constitution or law should be passed amendment to which that any politician can only take $10,000 or whatever a specific amount of money is from a specific person and or company, which means a whole company should be considered a person for a donation for a lifetime. That's it. So you take the money out of politics, but fat chance you're going to get anything like that passed down because it's so corrupt. You have people going into DC where they're like Pelosi. Pelosi was worth about 1.5, 1.6 million dollars when she first went in. And you could check this when she first went in to Congress. She's worth 114, 120. That's on paper. I say it's you have no idea what hidden bank accounts she has. Okay. And she's big about letting all these people in. All these people, all these Democrats about letting everybody in. Okay, so fine. Go to a Democrat house and say, okay, you're great about letting those people in. Take your door locks off and take your doors off, and just let anybody come into your house. No, they look at her house. Look at Biden's house. Look at all these people. They have the biggest walls around their house. They're the biggest hypocrites around because you see, they're all about don't do as I do as I say, but don't do as I do. I'm special. Even AOC, who came from here, thinks she's special. She wants to get rid of planes. She wants to get rid of all kinds of things. But she's special. So she's can take a plane. She can wear a $1,500 outfit. By the way, the number one polluter in the world, you know what it is? It's big agro. You know what the number two polluter is? Textiles. Petrochemicals is five. Five on that list. Yeah. See, on a molten salt reactor, you don't have to worry about that because if a freeze plug melts, the molten salt reactor fluid goes out of the primary vessel, which has graphite in it, and goes into a drain tank, which is designed to give away the heat. As soon as it gets out of the graphite, there is no nuclear reactor happening. Okay. But the technology we have writing our again, I'm not for this. I'm not for pressure water reactors. I'm not for boil water reactors. Why? Because you got to keep them cool. It's 1947 technology. Okay. How many things do you depend on that's 1947 technology? It was a technology that was really designed and made for submarines and Navy vessels, which the military is not very efficient. They don't think about that. All they thought about was this is going to be put into this carrier and it's going to run for 35 years. That's all they were concerned about. This is going to be put into a sub that can go anywhere on the planet, and the only criteria we have the limit is food. Uh, um, and Evangelina, I I'm not talking about. That's a really tough thing to say because um, the abuse is where it's used for a lot of things. It's used for genocide. It's used for birth control. It's used for horrible things, inconvenience, everything else. Being raped by your father at 14, that's a really tough one. I mean, like I said, I unfortunately God permits that evil. It's above my pay grade. But to see that person who's carrying their father's baby go to full term, wow. I don't know what to say about that. So I think I think again, there could there's an argument there for lots of things, but you have to also think about the psychology of the person. I don't know. It's above my pay grade for a lot of things. I think the same thing for, unfortunately, women who are with the big R. I mean, that is a big R too, so it's the same thing. So, no, having, children is a blessing, yes, but I mean, and then you gotta think about it's a complicated thing. It has to be considered. The psychology of even the child and the psychology of even the woman, even the husband. How's the husband gonna feel about being it's a difficult thing. Yes, now, that's what I'm saying. But what they're saying is that would be illegal, and it's not. They're saying that that Plan B thing is a sin. Um, I don't know. Um, all I can say is I've seen some horrible things in my time, and I've seen women that have been R'd so bad they became L's, and they and I'm not saying that I agree with the L thing, but they're so damaged, and they're I mean, they're afraid to be in a room alone with any male. I've met people like that. Um, I'm not saying that's correct with their attitude. I'm not saying that the attitude is somebody who's afraid to fly or is afraid to go out of the house. What I understand, especially something where I know this one woman, her coach. I mean, like since she was like 8, it it ruined her entire life. So I think, you know, as a if God forbid, well, can but now, but I'm just saying, if it was my wife, I would have to. I would go along with anything, but I would understand anything. It was a rough thing, and I've seen other couples go through that, and they got divorced over it. And yeah, okay, it was probably the guy who couldn't handle it fault that he couldn't handle it, and he left. But um, I look at the wedding, better or worse, and you got to deal with it. And how half of it was hers, and she didn't want to get rid of it. It's her choice, and I don't think it was right of my friend to do that to this other woman. But again, she was damaged from to begin. She became an L. And no, I'm not saying that I agree with that. I don't. But I think a lot of things led her into that, including the way her husband behaved, which was not right. Frankly, he was an asswipe, insecure idiot. Just saying. Max. Oh boy, Max. Oh boy. Oh boy. A big bowl, Max. A big one. Oh yes. All right. But anyway, because of these, so now you can say the best thing that Trump ever did was to at least put some people in the Supreme Court that made proper decisions. So the Second Amendment decision is big because it overturns a rule that was set in 1911, which again is tremendously discriminatory, the way it's implemented, because it's saying, and that's not the way the Constitution is written. Thomas basically did a fantastic write up on that. The big thing was, hey, do you have to quantify whether you have a Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment right or not? I mean, it's ridiculous. Even if you're a non citizen and you're here, you still have that right. So that's huge. But that's not stopping our governor and legislature from going crazy and trying to make laws that are essentially, again, unconstitutional. The New York Safe Act law is unconstitutional. It has an effect. It's done, yeah, it's done great things. It's increased gun crime, it's increased gun deaths, it's increased homicides, robberies, home invasions, the whole works. And it didn't stop anything. Like I said, it didn't stop Buffalo. It didn't stop any of these. It didn't stop anything. So if I wanted to buy, I have an SP1. Okay. Why? Because I priorly owned it. So I had to register it. I had to do everything. Okay. And when I die, my sons cannot have it. It's going to be destroyed. It's going to be turned in and destroyed. Okay. Now, years ago, I converted it to a 22. I have an insert, because I take it to the range and I just, basically every AR-15 is a 22. It shoots a 22. I mean, just not as powerful, but it still does the same thing. Um, and I had very fond memories of that because I used to shoot three gun with it. Three gun is a 45, a shotgun, 12 gauge shotgun, and an AR-15, a 223. Um, but a lot of times I would practice with the 22 because it was cheaper. I mean, you could buy a brick, 5,000 rounds of 22 for like 200 bucks. Now, forget about it. That's the other thing they're doing. The government under Biden has been arming everybody. They've been buying rounds for the IRS. They've been buying rounds for the post office. They're buying millions and millions of rounds, keeping the price of everything through the roof. So it's ammo for them, guns for them, but not for thee. Why do they need all this stuff? Why does your postman need that? He's going to be armed with a 9 millimeter, Sig Sauer, whatever. I mean, how's he going to do that and walk around with 19 rounds in a state to where the New York City fact says you can't have more than 7 rounds with your gun? Oh, he's going to have an exception. Oh, there's an exception for them. Do you know there's not an exception for police officers? They're walking around on duty with rounds, but as soon as they go off duty, they can't be carrying any more than 7 rounds. You think the MS-13 gang members are worried about in their legal guns that they don't have? We're making sure we only have 7 rounds in our legal gun. I've seen 15-year-old kids packing 3 guns, okay? 3 in wine dance for my ranges. Wow, you you're here again? I gave you a big bone. You had a big bone. You had a big bone. Oh, you like that. I love petting dogs right on the top where the creases. They go like this. Right in the back, right in the back, their ears and their. Uh, he gets into that. You get into that? I'll give you half. Okay, these are big. Okay, half. Right? Come on, get half. Okay, get half. um, I'm allowed in those situations. Sleepless 2012. Yeah, like I said, it's above my pay grade, but I've seen the um I've seen the damage of the result of that. And it's that's why I'm all for the Second Amendment, because you see, I believe that all women they should get trained, because I believe that no, when I'm walking around, I'm a 6'4" guy who weighs 350 pounds. Even when I wasn't this overweight, when I was weighing 270 pounds, when I played football, I was 225. I was in the best shape of my life. Okay. I never walked around worrying that I was going to have the big R in an empty parking lot late at night. I don't know what that's like. My wife does. Oh, she would tell me all these things. I mean, she had close keeping a key a certain way, and yeah. Oh my gosh! I mean, you living like that all the time. I think it's atrocious taking the right of the ability of that woman to pack a concealed weapon. It's horrible to do that to her. She needs to be able to prevent, and they don't even talk about that prevention. They don't even talk about how many R's were prevented, and assaults were prevented, and crimes are prevented, and attacks are prevented on women being able to defend themselves. Yeah, Jim Foreman is absolutely correct. The Planned Parenthood, 53% of all the money they make is from selling those parts. And the person who formed Planned Parenthood is a known person who was a genocide person who, and again, it's worked. Since 1973, they literally kept the black population at 13 to 15% in this country. I'm not talking about the immigrants. I'm talking about the people who are here. You think about how many people they killed and how many people they killed that could have had babies. I mean, just thinking about the loss in town. How many Quincy Jones? How many Washington Carvers? How many, all that kind of talent? How many, uh, how much talent, genetic talent was wasted? Horrible. And we're only talking here. We're not even talking about the insane genocide that went on in China, to which now they only have, I think, my friend was telling me I was like 30, 30 or 31 mitochondrial DNA strains in a population of 3.7 billion, which means when you're having sex over there with somebody, you're literally having incestuous sex. I mean, they're going to have all kinds of problems like you would not believe. um, Gary, no, you don't. The okay, so I've sailed a good piece of this ocean, okay, and it was just on the East Coast. But before that, I was first mate to a 141-foot schooner, and I sailed the Caribbean. Okay, and I'm telling you right now, people have no idea. When you see how vast the ocean is, that's just the top of it. Okay, just the top. There's tons of water. How do you think Israel, Saudi Arabia, and these countries are making water? Okay, They're making oases out of the desert because of using desalination. You could do it with solar power, not photoelectric. No, I designed a contraption that basically uses. Um, See, what people don't seem to understand is that you don't have to have a lot of heat to boil water. Water boiling is all about vapor pressure. So if you remove the pressure, then you'll boil the water. How can you, Bob? How can you remove pressure? I devised a system a long time ago, which is a modification of an old World War II system, which uses a pinball and solar panels that are made up of copper pipe and glass boxes. Now, this system is only going to work in the tropics. It's not going to work north of the Tropic of Cancer or the not Capricorn. Not going to work. It's going to, but in that region, it would work. Okay, and that basically is heating up the water to 180 to 190 degrees in these solar panels, and it's causing that water to be pressurized because it can't go back the other way, and then it circulates, and there is a system of heat exchangers, and the other part is low pressure, so it causes that water to boil, and that boiled water goes up and goes through another heat exchanger, which is bringing in the cold ocean water, which is actually condensing it to fresh water in that heat exchanger. And then it goes on to go through the solar panel. No pumps, just little balls, pinballs going up and down like little flooded valves. Totally physical system. Simple. I was planning on installing it. One of the things I wanted to do is go and bring a bunch of Bibles and retire sailing the Pacific and going from island to island and setting the systems up because you could get the hardware to do it really cheaply. And I knew how to weld and I knew how to braze and I could build these things anywhere and also, teach the word. Um then my stroke happened and everything kind of changed, but it's okay. So, but yeah, I had a dream of being able to do that. Yeah, exactly. Jim Forrest is, yeah, exactly. Okay. Um, yeah. I mean, you're proud of committing a a horrible, horrible sin and normalizing it and giving these people the rights and everything else. You like I said a million times. They made the mistake. They should have gone a long time ago, eons ago, for civil unions. They shouldn't have worried about marriage license. Marriage license between you and God, and that's the church. Tax liabilities and other responsibilities, legal, commerce, things like this, that has to do with civil unions. So I know, for example, um, guys who were best friends the whole life, they became widowers and they're living together and they can't have that. They don't have sex with each other, but they are living in the same place. They're friends, it's like the odd couple kind of thing. They would benefit from the civil union. Married couple would benefit from the civil union. Um, yes, a gay couple would benefit the same way because you see, what I'm saying is you can't justify morality, but the other thing is that I don't want the government being in my bedroom, which means I don't want the government to know. They don't have any right to that. Okay. And you guys don't have the right to judge. You can only say that's not what God wants. Okay. So, like, you know, remember Matthew, take the plank out of the eye before you try to take the splinter. Okay. So I get back to that. So yeah. But what they're doing in this agenda, like for example, Lightyear. Did you see what they're doing in Lightyear? and they're doing it for kids that are watching this, like my grandkids are going to be seeing this. I'm going to tell my son, I don't think it's a good idea because they're trying to normalize it. That kind of behavior, I think they're trying to normalize it because of the fact I think it welcomes demons into that vessel. I think that every human being has a hole in their being, and that hole is supposed to be filled with the Holy Spirit and God. Not, and if it's not, I think it can be filled with demons. Okay, yeah, plural. And I think you've seen that effect, and you're going to unfortunately see that effect in a lot of stuff today. And what are these people outraged about? They're outraged about the ability to kill people. Lucky their people themselves were not aborted. They could have been aborted. Yeah, well, you know. And you'll notice that a lot of them use the symbol of the lightning, okay? That lightning thing, like the SS. That lightning thing is satanic. That's depicting when God threw all them out of heaven. People, some evil crap going on today. Real, really bad. We are in we are in the tribulations. The tribulations is now, okay? We're about to see the Antichrist. Remember, the Antichrist has to be in reign for 3 years. You'll know he's not. If you're saved, you'll know that this person who proclaims to be Christ is not, because we will not have any problem. We will be transformed when Christ comes. Revelation, when he comes, we will be instantaneously transformed. We will be joining him up and yeah. And I'll ask him where he wants me. I'm not gonna leave his side. I'm gonna fight. Good faith and I are looking to that, right? Good faith. Oh yeah. Well, you have to remember, Jim, that Archie Bunker was really a liberal. That actor. Okay, you have to realize that a lot of that was to do exactly that, to do the opposite. Okay. Yeah. Again, they. Well, it's so unbelievable when you see people in Congress before a sworn committee can't identify themselves, even themselves, as a woman. That's yeah, and you know what else? I tell you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a big drive. So some of the HOV lanes are +3. So now my wife and I we're going to, even though it's just my wife and I, we're going to go in them because I'm going to identify as two people. So we're going to be three in the car. Yeah. I'm gonna identify as Bob and Joe. Yeah, I'm a dual person. Yeah, right now I'm Bob, but yeah, Joe. Yeah, wait a second, I'll get him for you. Yeah, I did the whole thing. Yeah, let him see and give us a ticket for that. No, I'm identifying as two people. It's yeah. Could you imagine just like walking into your bank and saying, I'm identifying as a relative of the Rothschilds and I'm worth trillions of dollars, so give me a couple billion. Well, what's the difference? I feel like it today. It's like I had an argument with another guy the other day. He was saying that all aliens are demons, and I'm like, well, some of them are demons, but how do you know that some of them aren't angels? And you could be angels walking upon us the same way, like I said. Okay, ready? Good and bad. Most bad. Okay, That's the way I feel. I think that some of them are actually from other civilizations, whatever. But again, I think that again, good and bad, mostly bad. But you see, we have a weapon against demons. We have a weapon against Satan. Okay, what's the weapon? We're not supposed to fight them. Okay, that's where these idiots made the mistake where he's a person that came with the hand on a Bible. Okay, no, you call upon Jesus. Jesus fights them. Okay, in the name of Jesus Christ, get thee hence, Satan. You're going to be the vessel for the Holy Spirit to cast them out, but He does the casting. Okay, not no. I don't. No, he deals with it. I don't deal with it. He does. Yeah. So, and I agree totally with Peggy the answer. Yes, we are definitely aliens. There's no question about it. I think we came from a planet that used to exist between Mars and Jupiter. I think we came from a planet that was at where the asteroid belt is now. That's my hypothesis, but that's my opinion. It sure looks like that. How's Mr. Rick? I don't know. I haven't talked to him. I will talk to him today. I'm doing two shows today. The other show is again. It's going to be at after this show. I'm going to take a 5 minute break, and then I'll be back on the air because I want to discuss. I don't know. I lost the internet here, all the internet. The only thing I had access to was my servers. Um, and the only reason why I had that access is because I was maintaining VPNs with those servers. Even those servers here, I mean, server in England, I had a server in England that I was talking to that I could get out, but I couldn't get out to. It was literally Verizon cut off all their internet access between the hours of 3 and 4:30 in the morning 2 days ago. So that's how bad they were infected. The only way they could clear the hack was to go and restore it to their mirror systems restored. They wiped everything out. You know, the infiltration, that's how bad it was. Um, so I'm afraid that that kind of thing is going to happen again. Now, what was up? You ready? My Odyssey page was up. I could get to my Odyssey page. Join me on my Odyssey page. Join me. I couldn't get to my Patreon page, but please join me on my Patreon page. Please support this channel. But join me on my Odyssey page. I put up a community thing. It costs me money, but you could type anything there. Okay, you can discuss things with each other, and it's not censored. It's run by me. Okay, what will I censor? Okay, I'm not going to censor hate speech because you can be an asswipe, but I will censor provoking speech. You know, I won't let people insult each other and make us stupid. If you want to have an argument with somebody, fine, but argue with a proper debate and proper ideas and everything else. When you have to revert to start insulting that person and doing, you know, like the first thing they would say to me is you're fat and everything else. And, yes, I'm fat. Yes, I used to be fatter. I used to weigh 477 pounds. I'm down to 350. Um, I need to lose 125 pounds. Okay. Does that mean that I don't have knowledge? Does that mean that I don't understand things? No. I don't understand everything. I understand what I understand. The more I understand, the more I know I don't understand. The more I know I don't know. Okay, it's that kind of enigma. The more you learn, the more you don't know. It's amazing. The more you find out that there's so much more out there, and that goes with the Bible too. I am not an expert. I'm never going to profess to be an expert, but I'm an expert in the fact that I God has answered my prayers. God has restored me. I was fully paralyzed. I had brain damage. I went from 140, 184 IQ down to 131. I haven't tested it recently, but if you look back at my recordings, you'll see that I'm speaking. I've been restored. Um. Okay. Any other questions about things? I'm not knowledge about nutrition. I am actually. You ready? We shouldn't eat any technically any grains except things that we harvest and make, but not that much. No processed anything, no processed sugar or anything else. We should, if we hunt, basically a modified keto diet, um, and we reserve to maybe 1 to 2 meals a day tops. When I was doing that on the regular, I was losing a lot of weight. So I'm going to be doing that again and exercising. Okay. Yes, would I have pizza like once a month? Sure. But most of the time it was sardines and it was steaks and things like those things are great, but they're not great for me now because the seeds that were left from these blood pressure meds basically gave me propensity to get gout and like that, and also to have kidney stones attacks. So I basically um, I'm getting rid of these stones. On the pizza thing, no, if you get like King Arthur whole, grain um, flour, and again, you don't eat that much of it. You put your own homegrown tomatoes and other things on there. The thing is moderation, okay, and once a month. But having burgers and not cheeseburgers, no, 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 no. Grilled on the wood fire steaks, burgers, stuff like this. Yeah, and fish, lots and lots of fish. Um, More wild caught than you. The more wild, the better. So yeah, I mean, my uncle lived to 98, and he probably would have lived to 130. He died at 98 because he lost the love of his life. He literally put her in the ground and died that night. I mean, he was with the woman. They were I mean, since they were like 7. It's like 91 years. I can't even imagine. So yeah, he went to sleep. Anyway, he looked like Jimmy Stewart. He looked like Jimmy Stewart, but he talked like Abraham Lincoln. And he ate bacon, eggs, homemade biscuits. They were homemade grown eggs. They were homemade grown biscuits. They were homemade grown bacon. I mean, he had such a dry sense of humor. He used to make all his bacon from pigs he had, but he used to cure them. He took the outhouse that was on the farm going back on our family to 1845. He turned this outhouse into a smoker. I mean, last time I talked to Rick, he's getting better, but he was not doing that great. but he's going. I remember when I recovered from my stroke. It's like two steps forward, one step back. It's a constant thing. It's very depressing. It's very hard on you, and it requires a lot of prayers. So yeah, Blondie. Yeah, um, he was a United States senator for 21 years, and the Democrats wanted him to run for president. My family was a Democratic family. Okay, my father was the first that became a Republican. But my uncle was in the Kennedy administration. Um, George. So yeah, I mean that's how the whole thing happened. I mean, my father and the president were very good friends. They one was insane with plywood, the other was insane with aluminum. Something about Navy guys. They're crazy, crazy people. Crazy, brave but crazy. Um, so yeah, this there's a you know there's a camaraderie that they are the only ones that understand that. Right? But I put it to you, JFK would not be a Democrat today. He'd be a right wing Republican like Reagan. Okay, Reagan was a Democrat that turned Republican too. So I mean, I don't know what these Democrats are communists. That's what they are. So I mean, I have respect for any Democrats that have a certain perspective. That's fine. They have a right to their opinion. That's fine. But this stuff, this is Marxist crap. This is not. This is socialist. You know, Bernie Sanders, by the way, he owns like 3 or 4 homes that are over $500,000 each. You know, just tell him to give them up. And tell AOC to give up her all these special things, and tell all these people who want this to give up all their special things. They don't want to do that. They want to be just like it is in the USSR and everything else, where they had 1% of the population, even less than that, getting the benefits from the 99%. The 99%, which I still know, were living 3, 4 families to an apartment with one bathroom. Yeah. Um, I think DeSantis is a better choice, not Trump. I don't agree that Trump should run. I don't agree with that. Specifically, the Trump media thing, and again, I do not agree with that speech that was being censored by his new Trump media organization. The fact that it was being censored is what I disagree with. It should not. Okay, I don't censor people here unless they get like out of control, or whatever. But I am willing to debate anybody about anything. Okay, my faith in God is that strong. My faith in my position is that strong. Are there things that I don't know? Everything, sure. There's plenty of things that I don't know about on the nutrition thing. Absolutely. But what I know about nutrition is this: I always felt better, like when I was living up in Vermont and getting everything and making up there and hiking everything else. I felt great. I felt great. I feel terrible here. Okay. Whether it's the hidden fructose that's in whatever product it is, or the eggs that are coming from, I don't know. But up there, you just feel, but what can I say? And also the air is way cleaner. Okay. It's just they don't call it the Green Mountains range for nothing. I mean, it's nothing but trees like this. Okay, I mean, you know, it's fresh water. The water is so good in my house up in Vermont. Oh my gosh. I mean, just taking a shower in it and washing your hair, it's so good. Drinking the best coffee in the world I make up is up there. The water is 45 degrees out of the faucet. Comes from I it's so yes, I like that. I also love sailing. I couldn't get my boat. I I fell and I got hurt and everything. It's just not going to happen this year. But I really I do great on my boat for the same reason. We're eating what we catch. We're eating clams. I'm doing all day. I'm exercising, swimming. You constantly, and it's not not this processed crap. You know, um, it's Janine, if you put the water from my mountain, oh, my mountain is the source of the Battenkill River. My creek ends up going into the Battenkill River. Okay, that's I even took good faith up to where that river literally starts. Good faith actually saw it. Okay, and yeah, it's it's so good, and it goes into two ponds. One pond is literally, I don't know, 100 yards from my deck. That's the first one. That drains into yet another bigger pond, and then the overflow from that goes into another river that comes down the mountain into this big thing where the best trout fishing in the world is, and then that goes into the feeds into the Battenkill, which becomes Battenkill River from other tributaries. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. You got eagles, you got bears, you got foxes, you got this wild cat, which is not as big as a puma, but he's a little bit smaller than Max. But and you don't, um, quiet, really, it's beautiful up there. And I go to sleep with my bedroom door open. I mean, my window, and I can hear my babbling brook, which is fantastic. To go to sleep and hear that water just trickling and bubbling, you're out. Not to mention, doing stuff and walking. I mean, forget about it. I mean, and you're walking up and down hills both ways. Big pool, big Olympic sized pool, a gym, everything. Great. So can't wait to go back there. Probably do that in August because it gets ridiculously hot here. So if I had my boat, I'd be out on it. But since I'm not gonna have my boat in the water, I'm gonna just go up there in August. It's beautiful. 54. I'm gonna stop this at 55 because I have to take a what break, and then I'll be back. Let me see, it's 13:20. I'll be back at 1:30. And anybody wants to be a caller, go to my Patreon site, get my number, and you can call in. I'll put you on the air. Put you on the air to good faith. You want to go on the air? You talk about Vermont. Did a lot of laughing. Yeah, I took good faith to the Yale Tavern, and he'll tell you it was fantastic. Yale Tavern was fantastic. The best food ever. Real great stuff, and they'll cook anything you catch. they'll cook it. It's great stuff. So yeah, it's great stuff. Anyway, we had a lot of time. He had a lot of fun with Max, and yep, and he went through the Enchanted Forest with me, and we did a lot of stuff, lots of stuff. I was trying to get more people to come up. He's, you know, can tell you something right now. It's he'll tell you, you know, the place is beautiful. All right, I'm going to end the stream, and I'll be back at 1:30. Right, God bless. Part one. Think about questions and stuff, and please share this. Join my Patreon page. Like this. Very important. God bless everybody.